Hi, welcome to New
Parrot
York.
TV, the voice for humanity.
Hi, welcome to New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have J.R. or Judy Turek, Walt Whitman Birthplace 2019 Long Island Poet of the Year, Superintendent of Poetry for the L Fair, or the
Long Island Fair.
Long Island Fair, 2020 Hometown Hero by the East Meadow Herald, Bard's Laureate 2013 to 2015. He's also an internationally published poet, translated into Korean, Romanian, French, and Italian. Editor, workshop leader, and 24 years as a moderator of the Farmingdale Creative Writing Group. She has 2 Pushcart Prize nominations and recipient of the Conklin Prize for Poetry. She was named a 2017 NYS Woman of Distinction. She is the author of Midnight on the Eve of Never, B is for Betwixt and Between, A is for Almost Anything, Imagistics, They Come and They Go, and most recent 24 and 24. She writes a poem a day for over the last 17 years. J.R., the Purple Poet, lives on Long Island with her soulmate husband, Paul, her dogs, and her extraordinarily extensive shoe collection. Thank you for joining us today, Judy. It's wonderful to speak with you. I hope you're having an excellent afternoon.
I am. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Quite welcome. So, what words would you use to describe yourself stylistically as a poet?
Prolific, adventurous, mischievous, and a motivator. I'm passionate about writing. I'm also passionate about other people writing and other people who feel, oh, well, I can't, or can you help me? And so, yeah, that's how I feel.
So do you have any literary influences? Like, are there what writers really inspire you to continue writing?
I have a lot of prose writers that have very poetic tendencies. I do write prose. I have a few novels and some short stories and whatnot, but poetry is instant gratification. So I kind of tend towards those. I love Stephen King. I love Dean Koontz, Anne Rice, and Edgar Allan Poe probably tops my list. And he's nice because he borders both prose and poetry. And so,
Right.
yeah, those are probably, and yet I do write some funny things, and I don't really write a whole lot of macabre things, but those are my interests, I guess.
Well, Poe is so great they actually named the genre after him, poetry.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Do you have any?
If Poe's face is on it, I have it. Several of everything.
Wonderful. So yeah, my aunt's been to Baltimore where she's seen his house and stuff like that. Yeah, she visited there a long time ago. But it's really great. I think it's great that it's interesting that you're interested in a lot of horror fiction or in that genre, but you're not really a writer of that. And you do find inspiration of that from the writings, I guess, in the poetic language of that particular genre. Do you think your poetry reflects that, or does it have its own kind of merits?
I guess in some ways it does, but I love being challenged. I'll try anything, any form, any genre, anything. I love form poetry. I love emblematic ones that create pictures. So I'm not shy about trying something new. I enjoy, that horror thing, but I try not to, be too scary with my poetry.
Right. I think the language of horror, the horror language, I guess you could call it, in the in that genre is very interesting, especially some of the older writers like Lovecraft or Poe or somebody like that, where they have a sort of almost like um, Gothic and Victorian mix. That's my impression. It's interesting because it is very poetic, and then you have writers like Stephen King, whose mind is really not as much appreciated so much as his storytelling. I think because there's a lot of thought that I think goes into his works, and then I've read quite a few myself, and I think that he has a moral kind of morals to his stories, and that he's trying to get across, and he uses a lot of literary symbolism. At least that's my impression. So, how did you find the inspiration to write a poem a day? When did that start? Obviously 17 years ago, but what was the reason you decided to do that?
It's as vivid as if it was yesterday. It was a Sunday night in January. It was
Mhm.
snowy. I was attending a poetry reading, and the reader was George Wallace, who was the first Suffolk County Poet Laureate.
Mhm.
And he read, and it was a wonderful evening. And the Q&A afterwards, he just a closing remark, very, very, light, fluffy kind of thing. Oh, well, I write a poem a day.
Hmm.
And I could feel the needle in my arm. It was like, you know what? I can do that. I can do that. And, so it was towards the end of January, and I wrote a poem, and it was wonderful. And I remember flipping the calendar page to February, the shortest month of the year, saying, oh my goodness, look at all those boxes. But the more often I did it, I think of it as practice. If I wanted to
Mhm.
play great piano, I'd have to practice every day. So I
Right.
practice. I don't ever want to write the perfect poem, because what would I do tomorrow? So I
Right.
think it's just practice. I practice every day. They come cleaner, smoother. A lot of them are organic. They need less editing, and um, I'm delighted. I'm so glad he said it. He laughs to this day, but but I write a poem a day.
Have you found over the years that your style has changed, or that you don't have to refine as much after all the practice of a poem a day?
Definitely, definitely. Um, my styles, again, I don't put limitations on myself for writing. So I've definitely broadened subject and genre and visual,
Hmm.
and and the fact that they're really coming from my subconscious, from my muse, who I call Harry. And Harry and I work really well together. I find that they're, that it's a great mingling, and again, the practice makes it easier. Sometimes I finish writing a poem and I go, wow, that was great. Thanks, Harry.
So is Harry, when you say Harry, is it like a dynamic energy flow from you, or is there an actual like command prompt kind of thing that's like, okay, write this poem, or how do you experience that? That's an interesting um, sort of metaphor.
Yeah, he's my muse. He's been my muse. He's had a name for the longest time. He has no face, I mean, there's no physical attributes.
Hmm.
He's just Harry, and he's just always with me. Sometimes he's a little miffed. I don't always pay attention to him, and
So it's
I'll
like,
learn.
is it a presence, or is it like an energy that just sort of like is with part of you that?
I guess it's kind of both. I've never really tried to define it, but it's definitely an internal energy and a spirit, but it's something very distinct that
And I think a lot of times I wonder, because I have a similar experience with a sort of I would call it a presence in my mind that it doesn't seem like it's me. It seems almost like it's something inhabiting me, and I wonder if this is like an attribute of consciousness in some way. And I
it
always
could
wondered
be.
about that. Yeah, because there must be some sort of energy or impersonal factor to consciousness, in my opinion. It's like something that's maybe the collective energies of the mind rumbling, or something is causing a sort of feel or a field of another thing, within you or something. I'm not sure. I just wondered. That's why I was asking that. And I thought that was interesting that you had a name and for the for your muse, and it's pretty fascinating to me.
Maybe if you name your muse, you have to figure out if it's male or female or whatever. And maybe if you name it, you'll feel that it's definitely a connection. There's definitely, a connection. It's not me myself, and it's
Right.
not just something to blame when I'm not writing well, but it's just, it's just symbiotic and always there. And so
Yeah, that's how I experience that energy as well. And I actually see something that I would define as sort of, it doesn't really have a gender. It's just a being of some kind, some sort of almost like mythical creature. I think of it almost like as Athenia, the Roman goddess of war, you know, and also the goddess of
nice.
wisdom. So I like to think of it as a sort of like mythological presence. So that's how I see my muse in a lot of ways. And it does compel you to write sometimes, and it sort of does its own little game. And it's quite interesting how that works, for me anyway. I've had those kinds of experiences where I feel like I'm compelled to write. If there's something that just wants to flood out, a rush. You ever
Yep.
feel that way? You ever get that where it's just like you feel it in your heart? I think too. That's generally how I feel it, from the very central, of your being. You're like, okay, this has to come out. You don't even know what it's going to be. It just happens. So is that how poetry happens for you when you write? You don't know where you're going. You don't know what's going to happen. It just sort of plays itself out, and
Most times, most every time. I mean,
yeah,
I sit down with an intent to write, with a focus to write, and I don't always follow that focus, which to me is a wonderful dual opportunity, because now I've written something I like, and now I still have that other idea. So I still have the opportunity to create something else from it. And so, yeah, if I, there are people in my life that if I don't write often enough, they tell me.
I had
Get
a
up,
writer.
pen up.
We had a writer I published too as well. So we had a writer who said that her doctor could tell when she wasn't writing. She would just get kind of, I guess, depressed or sad, or you could just tell when she was writing. He would say, "You've been writing lately, haven't you?" 'Cause she would glow. She told me she would glow when the doctor would notice that. That's pretty interesting. That there's just something mysterious about the writing process that no one can really define, totally. And so I find it interesting to talk to writers. That's one of the reasons I like to do these interviews, is to kind of get an idea of where everybody else is standing on the creative process. So do you ever write a poem and maybe like put it aside, and the next day you like break it apart and you know do like two poems from a one poem thing, and maybe the poem didn't quite work out so well, and you just break it in half? And
Yeah, a lot of times that deconstruction process of, it's here it is, and it seems whole, and it looks whole, but it doesn't feel whole, and it just doesn't feel right, that there's
right,
some things just not right. And a lot of times if I'm writing and then I step away and I come back, I can actually see that line of demarcation. And a lot of times that then becomes two poems, because my
interesting.
focus just, I was out of the zone, or my focus strayed, and it became something else.
Hmm,
And so, but when you write a poem a
interesting.
day, you have an opportunity for all sorts of things. So,
Right. You can always, go back to stuff you've written, a couple months back, and say, okay, and you can combine some of these works and take them apart. And, it's like fixing a car in a way.
yeah, yes.
So would you like to share a couple of poems with us?
Yes, I would love to. I had mentioned my most recent collection is called 24 and 24,
Okay.
and it was a
Nice.
fascinating process, because this was, I think, the 14th year. This was during the pandemic. And there's a group of about 500 people from 40 or more countries around the world that get together and write one poem an hour for 24 hours. And it's a fascinating process.
Oh, wow.
It's a little different than a poem a day. I mean, a poem an hour, it's really quite something. And so these are all 24 of the poems that I wrote during the pandemic for the poetry marathon. I was thinking about it the day before, so I included the poem from the day before. And that's the prologue to the book. And then the marathon ended about 9 a.m. New York time. And at, I think, either noon or 1 o'clock, there was another poetry reading. And I thought, you know what? I can zoom into that. I don't need to go to sleep. That's okay. And I wrote another poem. So it's actually 26 poems in the book. And it fascinates me to see where my mind was, the focus, the process, the sequence, the difference between hour 2 and hour 24. It was really quite an amazing thing. So I'm going to ask you, pick a number from 1 to 26.
14.
Okay. And that's the one I'll read. I call that poetry roulette. I kind of like the idea of that.
Don't win anything?
I love the idea, and I love the idea of this poem. This is called Pink Secrets. I've never read this. I'm known as the Purple Poet. Every now and then somebody comes on and says, "Oh, I like your pink hair," and 14 people in the Zoom room will chat. And it's not pink, it's purple, it's purple, it's purple. And so it's kind of the background, I guess, for this poem in a way. It's called Pink Secrets. I am dropped off by my mother to her mother's to spend the weekend with Nana. It's early Friday evening, and I'm already dressed in my lavender and pink PJs, soon snuggled into Nana's oak sleigh bed, cane-seated chair placed beside me so I don't roll out overnight. Morning sun rays drift from kitchen window through the bedroom door, Nana already up and starting breakfast. I sat at the table, jade green linoleum, a pillow beneath me on the jade dinette chair so I could reach my bowl of farina and glass of lavender milk. Nana decorated my cereal with pink jelly bean eyes and a pat of butter mouth. Food coloring my milk was essential or I wouldn't drink it. If I finished all my breakfast, Uncle Jimmy, who lived in the front rooms of the house, would give me a half piece of bazooka gum. I asked why the gum wasn't lavender. Dressed in pink pants and lavender top, I sat on Nana's lap as she read me a magazine, but the meaning slipped by me. I am 4 and coddled to stay within reach, no running or jumping, and I realize now that Nana was 71, not up to racing after me, but it didn't stop her from spoiling me. We played grocery store with her canned goods splayed on the table, my red cash register ringing up her corn and peas. After a PB&J sandwich with the crust cut off, the only lunch I'd eat, Uncle Jimmy would give me the other half of bazooka gum and read me the comic. I laughed when he laughed, but we both knew I didn't understand. He grumbled again when I asked him why the gum had to be pink. My secret kept still. I hated pink.
That's interesting. That's a fun poem.
Yeah, that kind of poured out. That was hour 14.
Okay. Was that a true story or was that?
It actually is a true story. It actually is.
Sure, go ahead.
They were trying, I think they were just trying to get me away from purple, and it was just kind of like, that wasn't gonna work. I can tell you that this many years later, that wasn't gonna work. So. And this one fascinates me. This is actually hour 21.
Okay.
So a little tired, a little groggy. I didn't take any naps. I just stayed up and wrote through the 24 hours. So this one surprised me. Forgive me, Muse. Bless me, Muse, for I have sinned. I intentionally misplaced 4 commas 7 times. Stole an entire line from Shakespeare, like he'd know. Resorted to using 2 adverbs and 3 cliches. Rewrote Frost's most famous poem. I like mine better. I defied Webster 80 times last week, and I lied in every poem I've written this year and last year and all the years before. I confess, I regret none of it. Still, forgive me, Muse. That's kind of my little pat on Harry's back, you know.
Right, right. So it seems like even though you're really fascinated with horror fiction, you write a lot of comedic poems. You're kind of funny and with a sort of like a non-serious slant.
Yes, yes, yes. There are some dark and some very serious poems.
Hmm.
My previous book, Midnight on the Eve of Never, are very dark poems. A big departure from what I was normally doing, and a number of readers had even commented. And the book actually was delivered to my publisher the day of my brother's funeral. And so in a lot of ways, I never really got to really truly celebrate the book, although I know he would want me to. And in a way, I'm glad that it came out when it came out, because I probably would have redone things, and I would have rewritten things, I guess, from a different slant. And one more, I'll read one more.
Sure, why not? We'll get a sample of some of your other side.
This is also in the 24 and 24. I guess my brother Mikey was in my head. This is hour 3, so I'm just kind of like getting rolling. And so you are gone. I know this, accept this, but sometimes when I wake up at 3 in the morning, I think it is noon and that it was all a dream, a nightmare, a Hollywood script, read line by line, the knife, gun, chainsaw, just a prop, the pool of blood, watered down ketchup, the closing notes, a familiar top 10 hit. Still awake at 4, I realize there was no blood, no weapon, no music, no dream, just the nightmare truth that you are gone. So not all funny, but some,
Right.
on that touching kind of serious side. So yeah, the process amazed me to see what came out and how. And it surprised me. There's a few people that kind of meandered through my 24 hours, and it was fun. My grandfather was there. My nana from the other side of the family. My brother was there. My husband showed up, which I didn't realize even. The dog showed up. So yeah, it was a fun process. It was a fun process, and I loved every single thing that I wrote in that 24 hours. It was fun. I did that marathon again this year. I don't think I'll publish a book from that. I think that this was the fun part of this was the first time, and it was just very exciting. Very exciting.
Interesting. So what are some really interesting literary conversations you've had yourself with other people?
Wow, there's a good question.
I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit about
We've
that.
had, literary, yeah. I think more of the fascinating conversations that I've had with other writers have been more along the editing line as opposed to literary. I'm also an editor. And so I have had hour-long debates with people about commas and about serial commas and about the semicolon really doing its job or not doing its job. And countless hours upon hours about how adverbs are just the energy vampires of the world, and you just should not use them. And that's gone on
Hmm.
And there are those people who love adverbs, and it's like, well, that's very nice for you, but you really shouldn't.
That's funny. I'll permit you, but I'll judge you too.
Yeah. Well, it's my goal to encourage people to write, and then to help them write better.
Mhm.
It's a great feeling to know that somebody is realizing a dream.
Right, it very much is. And also, as me as a publisher, I can relate to that. What do you look for as an editor? Is there something that sparked your imagination when you're reading other people's work?
Anything. People say, oh, do you only do a certain genre? Anything.
Hmm.
Anything. But I do term papers and dry stuff, and that's fine too, because it's still research and there's still a lot to it. I do a lot of crime fiction editing, some children's. Actually, a number of people are writing children's stories, which is wonderful. I did a fantasy novel a couple of years ago that
Mhm.
just fascinated me to, oh my gosh, dragons and the castles and the prince and the princess, and it's wonderful. It was wonderful. Absolutely delightful. There was a war and nobody died. That was a little bit of an issue, but other than that, the story was fabulous.
We have a remaining 7 minutes or so, and
Okay.
I'm curious. Does your shoe collection ever get in the way of your book collection?
That is a truly funny question, because not as the invitation to read it, but the poem from hour 2 is called Pump, and it's about a pair of shoes. And so yeah, there's about 500 pair in the collection.
Hmm.
But
Wow.
it's very organized. It's not as organized as my bookshelves, but it's organized, very organized. And we have 2 puppies, so they're all in a closet. They're all
Right.
safe from chewing dogs. And so, yeah. And the best times in life are spent barefoot. So,
Right. I think I can agree with that. When you're relaxed on the beach,
yep.
Somewhere out and walking on the sidewalk where it's, in a warm day where it's not too hot, not too cold. This may seem like a stupid question because it's almost sort of obvious, but why do they call you the purple poet?
Some people think that if you slit my wrist, it just comes out purple. It's just been, I don't know. It's just been a thing. It's just been a thing. I remember my father surprised me. I was young, very young, maybe 5. And he surprised me and painted my room. And he painted it pink, like Pepto-Bismol pink. And I came home from school and looked and said, oh, I can't sleep in that. Oh, and I made such a fuss that he went back to Pergamons at that time. And he bought lavender paint and lavender ceiling paint. And he proceeded, before the night was out, to repaint my room purple, because I was a brat about pink.
Funny.
Oh.
Does it just have a kind of strange reaction to it? Like it just looks tacky to you, or how do you experience?
Yeah. I mean, I have pink clothes and, pink shoes, several.
Mhm.
But I don't know, there's just this kind of connection to purple. And it's kind of cool. I believe everybody needs some sort of thing. And so
Mhm.
my thing is purple, and when people see purple things, oh, I thought of you. And it's like, that's really cool. Oh, I wore purple today. Is that okay? No, I think it's wonderful. Thank you. I think it's an homage.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just an
Yeah.
affinity.
So if we have a few minutes, so if you want to thank some friends and family, or said some words of wisdom to our audience out there, some of our fellow writers, during this period in human history that we can't explain, the pandemic with everything else going on. It's been happening the last, I guess it started with 9/11 here. I guess, just one series of misfortunes after the next, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's the pandemic especially has been challenging.
mhm.
I actually am grateful in a kind of sideways way for the pandemic. I have met people from other states. I have friends all over the United States. I've read in other countries. I read in England. I've read in Amsterdam. I read in places I didn't even know where I was. One Saturday afternoon, I Zoomed from Dallas to Riverhead to Boston to Kansas, did 5,330 miles in 6 hours and never left my desk chair, except once to make another vodka tonic.
Mm.
And so it's opened up a whole new world. I Zoom my creative writing group every other week now. We've been Zooming every week. We're going to go back to in person, and now it's going to be every other week. We've been doing this every week since March of 2020. It's an amazing thing. I've enjoyed traveling when I don't actually travel. I'm not much for flying and all sorts of things, but I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that that this whole other arena is opened up and that it's going to stay. And so, and I'm very appreciative to all my writing friends, especially the writers in the Farmingdale Creative Writing Group, who just are the best people I've ever met. And we weekly meeting and sharing and peer level. It's wonderful. And I'll drop one name. I don't want to leave anybody else out, but I do want to thank Rick Christensen for
Right.
pushing me to do this, because I kept saying, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have anything to say. I don't know. And so he pushed and I said, no, right. Okay, I will. So thank you, Rick.
Yes, thank you, Rick. Definitely. We always love to have new and interesting people come on and talk about their creative process and what makes them them and promote their work. And that's what we like to do. So,
Well, I appreciate you having me. This has been really cool. Thank you.
very welcome. So I think in about a minute, if you want to give some kind of advice to your fellow writers out there, anything
Right.
specific you want to say?
Right. I end every email with right on. And so there are people out there who think, I can't. Well, if you don't, you can't. And everybody can write. And there's nothing like that sensation of creating something on, words, on paper, on a screen. It's an amazing other world. And so, be true to your craft. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Find a partner to write with too. It's a wonderful companion kind of thing, and it's a sharing,
Right.
editing, thinking, sharing ideas. It's just a wonderful. I can't imagine my life without it. I really can't. And so
Thank you so much for joining us today, Judy. It's been very pleasant talking with you. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. And we had Judy today, and tomorrow you don't know where we'll be. Keep an eye out. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, out there, viewers. And we thank all our viewers and all our subscribers and all our donors who have helped make this what it is. Without you, we are just talking to empty air. And if you've been following us for a while, we've had our anthology, which came out August 1st. And I actually have a copy here. If you guys want to see this, this is the Literary Parrot. It's a very nice little book. And it's $18 on Amazon. You can also probably request it from your local independent bookseller. It's Literary Parrot, Series 1. And it's a wonderful collection of prose and poetry, as well as some visual arts, some photographs of open mics around the country, visual from people ranging from Wolfman to Art Paul Slosher, who all have been guests on the program. And we thank them very much, all of our contributors to this wonderful collection that's over 200 and almost 250 pages worth of literary output from the last, few guests in the last 3 months. So subscribe to our channel, keep in touch with us. And thank you all for joining us on the program, everybody who's been on the program. If you want to donate, if anybody out there has a little spare change, we'll be more than glad to take it. PayPal.me/NYParrot. And you can get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, at literarycorner@NewYorkParrot.com if you'd like to be a guest. Thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon. Keep writing. And as Judy said, write on.